On this episode of the Mamas Con Ganas podcast, I'm interviewing Natalie Syrmopoulos. Welcome, Natalie.
Hi, thank you so much, Valentina, for having me.
Natalie is a life coach. Her company and brand is called Evolving With Natalie. And I'm very excited to have Natalie on our show because actually Natalie and I have co-authored a book that was just launched last Friday called Ignite Love. And I had to bring Natalie on board because we ended up meeting when we were doing the co-authoring process, and I found her story fascinating. Natalie, first of all, in order for my audience to get to know you a little bit better, tell them where you're from, where you grew up.
Well, thank you again for having me. And I am from Canada. And for those of you who are familiar, I'm from Toronto. I grew up in pretty much Toronto. I actually grew up on the countryside. And I've been here pretty much all my life. I love traveling, but I've been here all my life.
Beautiful, beautiful. Like my husband. My husband's Canadian. Yeah. I love Canadians.
Beautiful.
So Natalie, I find that a lot of people that have become life coaches, and I've interviewed quite a few life coaches on my podcast, they always have a very interesting story as to why they're doing what they're doing. Tell my audience how you got to this place. Why did you create Evolving with Natalie?
Yeah, I thank you for asking that question. It's been a journey, and life is a journey. And I found I was really stumped after having kids. That was a really big change for me, as it is for most women or parents who have kids. Life changes.
Totally.
But yes, exactly. You can relate.
Oh, yes.
But what I found was I was really struggling being a parent, and I have two young girls, and my eldest is what I would now call a gladiator kid. That term is coined by Jennifer Clary. She's a family therapist.
What does that mean, gladiator kid?
Oh, it means a very feisty, strong-willed, super persistent kid who just knows what they want, and which are all great qualities in a strong young girl.
Absolutely.
Exactly. EO or whatever life aspirations you have. But when you're parenting a child like that, it's actually really difficult because I ended up butting heads with her quite a bit. So I was struggling. I was really struggling. Parenting was not shaping up to be how I thought it was going to be. And in that came a lot of questioning as whether I was even doing this job called parenting right, quote unquote. And felt like I was failing at times, and that I was alone in that. And quite frankly, I reached out for some help, but things really took a turn when I realized that I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. And
wow.
I really had to take a good look at how I was living my life and try to figure out, something's not working. What is it that I can do to make a very sustainable shift? How can I transform what I'm doing? Because the Band-Aid solutions, the fix-it strategies weren't really working. I was reading books on parenting. We went to a family therapist at one point. There was lots of things I was doing, very resourceful that way, but still something was not aligning in a very, like I said, sustainable way. So I knew something different had to change, and it couldn't be my girls, because the reality is they are feisty and I love that spirit in them. It's just hard to parent someone who is like that. But at the same time, it was also my eldest daughter especially is the biggest mirror for me. Like everything I was trying to resist, everything I was trying to fix or change, she would be right there kind of just showing me that this is not going to work, Mom. You need to step it up because this isn't working.
I think a lot of parents can relate to you with this story? Because I definitely relate like 100%. Like my
Yeah.
oldest son too is that gladiator kid, I guess now I call
Yes.
he is feisty. He knows exactly what he wants. I mean, I remember when he was 1 year old and I would be dressing him, 1 year old, and I'd be like, okay, let's put on your shirt. And he's like, no, 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 not that shirt, that one. And I remember thinking to myself, 1 year old? I'm like, first of all, you're a boy. I thought boys didn't care about clothing. And second of
Yeah.
all, you're only one and you're telling me what you want to wear. So yes, I
Yeah.
totally relate to that. And in the mirror aspect, oh my goodness. Yes, my son is my mirror. And I think if for anybody who hasn't heard that term, it might be something that you might want to examine, because what we're talking about is seeing yourself reflected in your child. And I've
Yeah.
come to realize as well that whatever, how do you say, weakness or deficiency or thing that my son needs to work on, in reality, it's always something that I need to work
Yes.
on, which is so hard to swallow.
Yeah. And this is precisely the journey. Like what started out as me wanting to try to figure out how to help my kid really was a journey on figuring out how to reparent myself first, because only in that capacity could I really offer the space and the and role model what it is that I'm looking and hoping and enrolling her to do as well.
And what do you
So
mean by reparent? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So what I mean by reparenting is you really need to look at so behaviors that would come up. So let me back up a little bit, okay? Let me go
Okay.
back to the gladiator, because like I said, Jennifer Clary coined this term, and I loved how she coined this term, because otherwise when I was looking at how my child was behaving, a lot of traditional theories would suggest that my child is um, uh, oppositional defiant disorder, or stubborn, or like maybe some ADHD because they couldn't like focus and listen to what you're saying and blah blah blah, like all these really negative connotations. So I really appreciated what Jennifer Clary brought to the table in saying that as gladiator kid, because I really wanted to still honor her spirit. Again, as you and I just
Mhm.
mentioned, these are good qualities. Being persistent, being strong-willed, knowing what you want, those are fantastic qualities. I
Fantastic.
still wanted to honor that, but have that balance, because and again, as Jennifer Clary says, we really are our child's frontal lobe for the first, don't get scared parents, but up to 25 years. The frontal lobe is not fully developed until you're 25, sometimes 35 years old.
So what does the
So
frontal lobe do?
that's the executive functioning, the being able to have critical thinking, make logical choices, like those things that when you see a 3-year-old and they're having a tantrum, they're not even, that's off, that top brain is off. So we have to help our child, we have to be that for our child. So there's this balance, or this dance that I like to say, that is happening between honoring your child's spirit and who they are, and being able to parent them and guide them so that the two can and honor yourself, so that there's a harmony. Because otherwise it's just rebuttaling, it's my way or it's your way, and then there's like you said yourself, your child wanted to wear a certain thing at 1 years old. And that's exactly, when you said that, that's exactly how I experienced life. I would not be able to dress her. I would see all of these pretty little kids, like these little girls in these cute little outfits and so adorable, and they had matched their mommy and blah blah blah, and I was like, oh my God, what's wrong with this? How come I can't make this happen? What's wrong with her? What's wrong with me? Do I not have it together? Like, can I not make this happen? Like, I was a pretty successful person before being a parent, and I just felt like a parent, I was failing in many ways.
I think a lot of
So
us feel that way, though. I think it brings out our insecurities as well. Parenthood is something
yes,
that brings out a lot of stuff that we haven't examined.
yes,
And it also, I think one of the things that parenting does is also bring out like our compassion towards other parents.
yes,
Like,
Do you remember when before you were a parent, you would look at a family and let's say a kid was just screaming or doing something
in the
and you'd be like,
airplanes.
right, yes,
And be like, oh
exactly.
my God, I can't believe that person is letting their kid
Right.
cry. Like if it was my
I know.
kid, I could do so
Oh
much
yeah,
better. And then you have your kid
absolutely.
and you're like excusing yourself. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And you're just hoping the person behind them and in front of them, first
Yes.
person with the person in front of them that they're kicking is going to be like nice enough and not, oh my gosh. I've had some
And understand.
experiences in planes.
Yes. Yeah, and understanding and compassion, that compassion, right? So it's only like if you can start to develop that compassion, um, and I say this even if you're a parent and your kids are pretty like if they're people pleasing kids or if they just they're not that strong will, but they're just a typical kid, I guess. You may not experience that. You may not experience that need to try to adjust how you parent with your child because if everything's running smoothly. But the problem is a lot of kids when they get to be teens, that's when they start to be rebellious. But what we're seeing with gladiator kids is that I've described my child who is now not even 7. I describe her as being a teen trapped in the body of a whatever at that time was like a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old,
Wow.
6-year-old, because that's how she would act, like answering back, slamming doors. It was overwhelming.
And I have a question for you because, you know, there's a fine line or a struggle sometimes because we were raised in a certain way. And like in my household and in my husband's household, it was a pretty strict, I mean, my parents were lenient with some things, but for the most part, you did what your
Oh,
parents told you to do.
exactly,
And
exactly.
I consider myself like rebellious out of, in the sense that I always told them what I thought and my parents were open to listening. But at the end of the day, I always did what my parents wanted me to do. And then sometimes we are faced with these children in this new time where they feel like they're the ones who rule the world.
Yes, absolutely. And this brings me back to your original question of what does it mean by reparenting yourself? Because when you look at how we were parenting, and most of us use how we were parented as the context to how we are going to parent. Either we're going to do the things that our parents did, or we're not going to do some of the things that our parents did. We have this idea of how we're going to parent, but then we get this child who is not is just vibrant and just wants to be seen and heard, and as all kids do. But this strong-willed gladiator type kid, there's no like fear-based parenting, which is what most of us grew up with. Fear-based parenting does not work with the gladiator kid. It actually backfires.
Yes, I know that backfires with Luciano completely. You're absolutely
Yes.
right.
And
Yeah.
it's and when so there'd be times that God bless my parents, they would be like, well, when you were a kid, you didn't act like that, and we never tolerated that. When they would see how my child would act, and then of course I would start to think that I'm not capable, and that what am I doing wrong? How can I not handle this? But the thing is, they don't. Gladiator kids don't respond well to fear-based parenting, and the reality is we shouldn't really be parenting from fear,
From
anyways. And that's
fear,
the whole.
anyways.
Yeah, that's the whole. That's how parenting is shifting now. So parenting has evolved. It used to be this old paradigm of parenting where it was largely fear-based, and now the new parenting paradigm is like this conscious parenting or awakened parenting. And it's hard to be that when you come from a different background, and you have a child who's not really um, doing exactly as you ask. It's hard to kind of do that. It's hard to parent from that space. So reparenting yourself, so for example, I'll give you a quick example. When my child is quote unquote misbehaving. Let's say she does something that she's not supposed to do, or let's say she slams the door. Let's just keep it really simple. Let's say she slams the door. That could be seen as rude, disrespectful, or she talks back. Okay, rude, disrespectful, and a lot of the stories that start to pile up in my head are, oh my gosh, my kid is out of control, or I have no control, or what's wrong with this scenario. And then I would start to get angry. And my response was anger, because I was like, why can't you just do what you're asked to do? Like, why does this have to be such a difficult journey? Like, just do what you're asked to do. And there's no way. Like, the more I asked for something, the less she was willing to confine to that. So reparenting is looking at, why are these things happening in my mind? Why do I think that this is disrespect? And what is she really trying to say to me? Because in the old parenting paradigm, if someone slammed the door, if you or I slammed the door when we were kids, we would be in trouble.
Yeah, we'd
We
get
wouldn't even
grounded.
think of slamming the door. Yeah, yeah, at best, right? At best,
Mm-hmm.
grounded. Some of us would be hit. There's a lot of different ways that we're parented in the past. So now it's like, okay, and more importantly, we were never listened to.
Yeah,
So let's say
children
we
should
turn,
be seen and not heard was the.
absolutely, that was the saying. So you didn't talk about stuff. You didn't talk about feelings. You didn't really talk about anything that was really bothering you as a child. Emotions, like, so many people do not have any bandwidth for emotional resilience, because we were never really taught that. So now you have a child now in this realm of parenting, this new realm of parenting, where you want to be more conscious, more aware, um, more responsive to your child, meet them where they are. In order to do that, you have to create the space for yourself in that context. So again, if my child is slamming the door, or if she's talking back to me, all the dialogue that happens in my head about, that's rude, that's disrespectful, all that, I have to start thinking about, okay, is it really rude at this moment? What is she trying to tell me? Is it acceptable that she's doing that? Probably not. Not that it doesn't mean that I accept what is being done, but it's taking a step back in that moment to pull away the layers, or all the messages in my head, or just notice all those messages in my head about how life should go, how she should be, how this parenting thing should look like, and just really be present in the moment as to what is happening. Start to uncover, like, why is she doing that? And then let's talk about it.
Yes, I find that it's it's like you're stepping away from your emotions, pretty much. Like you're saying, it's like an observation of everything that you're thinking, and you step back for a second. And then when you step back, because you're stepping away from anger, like if you step into that emotion, if you react immediately after the child screams or hits the door, like you said, slams the door, or just acts in
Talk
what
back.
we consider disrespectful, we can get angry really quickly and then ground them, and then we shut the door to communication. So what
Yeah.
I'm understanding is, if we are able to observe those feelings but not step into anger or into that aggressive mode where we immediately shut them off, we step back and then think about a better way to be able to communicate with them.
Yes, absolutely. Um, and to dig a little bit deeper is then thinking about, why are you getting angry? So this is where the reparenting really starts. It's like, why am I getting angry in this moment? What was I told in my childhood that's making me think that this shouldn't be the way it is? Now, again, I'm not saying that it's okay to slam the door, or maybe it is in your household. Like, everyone gets to choose how they want to see their
Mm-hmm.
family dynamic. But it's that stepping back, being aware of, like you said, about what you're about to do, how you're about to react. Take a moment to thoughtfully respond in those moments, and maybe not in those moments exactly, but as you're reflecting and thinking about, like, why am I getting angry? And what is it, like, what are all the stories that are happening in my head? So give me an example of something that Luciano does that, and here's another way to look at it. When we get triggered, this
Mm-hmm.
is like, this is something is happening in the moment where we feel resistance to, or we feel like, it shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be so. So give me an example of something that Luciano does that, that you get triggered, when you get triggered.
Well, the other day I told him that he had this much time more to play on the. He asked me if he could have a little bit extra time on the computer with his video games, and I said, yes, you have until this time. And I said to him, this is the time you have to shut it off. And then I was working and I was so busy doing my things. And because, I have the little one as well. So my 3-year-old takes up a lot of my energy right now because he's the one that I have to dress, that I have to shower. Like, Luciano is now in middle school. He's 12 years old. So he didn't shut it off. And an hour and a half later, after he was supposed to shut it off, I realized it. And then I got really upset. Like I got really upset because I'm like, how, if I have to trust you, you have to get to the point where I trust you. If we come to an agreement and I'm letting you do something extra, you need to honor that word. And he ended up getting grounded that day because I was very upset. But it's interesting because at the end of the day with my son, which he's probably the gladiator kid as well, I've realized that the angrier I get, like if I scream at him, or I push against, like, when we're like butting head to head in terms of arguing, that doesn't reach him in any way.
Just pushes him.
It pushes him away. Yeah. I have to just sort of back off, tell him how upset I am, but in a very calm way, which is super hard for me.
Yes. And it was really hard for me too. And when you when you react in an angry way, nothing really lands with the other person.
No,
all
nothing
they see is
ends.
someone, they just see like someone's angry.
And it fuels their anger too.
Yes.
So it's like it creates like a snowball effect. You get it, they get angry, you get angry, then it gets bigger, and then that's when things can kind of get out of control, and you're just like,
why did I go down this path? And then that's where the awareness starts. And that's one of my pillars it needs to start with awareness. So in those moments, to take a pause before saying what it is you want to say, because you think he's disrespecting you, there's no trust there. Those are the stories in your head, right? There's no trust there. He's disrespecting you because he didn't honor the time that you said. But if you could peel away those stories, and in that moment just take a pause, and what helped me is like literally start to feel where in my body I was getting angry. Literally where. And what the beauty of doing that was that I started to really get grounded in it. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling it right here in my tummy. And then it's starting to it's like a ball of anger that's just about to come out.
Yeah, it rises.
Yeah. I'm just like, okay. And this is not about suppressing your anger. This is not about ignoring your anger or being better or controlling your anger. This is about honoring that emotion and being able to still create some space between you and the emotion.
Yes. I mean, that's an emotional mastery right there. I actually did a 3-part episode on this subject because I find that that's something that's so important that's not taught to us. It should be taught to us in school, like that knowing and that wisdom that we are not whatever emotion we're feeling at any moment. We're not happiness, we're not sadness, we're not anger, we're not bitterness. We're kind of neutral. And if we observe our emotions from above, we can actually choose what to step into.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah, because once you identify yourself so much so with anger in those moments when you and I, we were identifying so much with the anger that which is basically our ego, and our ego is telling us all the stories, why we should be doing this and why we should be angry and blah, 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 blah. When we kind of step back from that and separate ourselves, and like you said, we were able to then consciously choose, how do we want to respond in this moment?
Absolutely. And it doesn't mean that the kid doesn't, I mean, in my family, that doesn't mean that that my sons don't get the consequences for their actions.
Yes.
Because you do give them the consequences, but the consequences are not given or like in a way where it's like, where it's like out of control. It's like, okay, well, that this is not the right way to behave.
Yeah. So this is, exactly. So that's exactly it. It's a matter of being, and you said it before, coming from a place of neutrality. I always say this, come from a place of neutrality. When you're giving that consequence, it has to be from a calm, neutral place.
Yes, absolutely.
And people often sometimes misunderstand that as you have to be like a robot or emotionless. But That's not what I'm saying. And again, it's not about suppressing the emotion. It's about honoring what's so right now and being present right now. And yes, you need to deal with that anger. You need to deal with what that anger is trying to tell you. But in this moment, just be present. Okay, it's not like for you, and for your example, when you were saying about your son, like, it's, take away the stories about he's not trustworthy, he can't listen to what I'm saying, he's not responsible, all those stories that you put in your head in that moment for that incident. Just be like, you know what? What's so is that he didn't shut it off when I asked him to shut it off. Okay, here's the consequence.
Yeah, it's more matter of fact.
Yes.
Because I do think that it doesn't work when we don't show our kids that actions have consequences. Because I feel like in life, that happens to us regardless. So if you don't learn these important lessons when you're children, and I actually tell my son this, I tell him, listen, I'm giving you a consequence because you have to realize that mom also has consequences. If she doesn't do certain things, she has consequences that happen. And I'd rather you learn this sooner than later, because if you learn it later on, the consequences could be way worse than not being able to watch TV for a week.
Absolutely. And here's the other piece to this, okay? Because yes, there is a cause and effect and consequence. You want to be able to, that is life. Like you said, life, whether or not we try to protect our kids from that or have them be in a bubble, the reality is life operates that way. So we do need to have opportunities where that is practiced in our home. However, there's also this other side to it, which is about connecting with your kid.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So what was missing, and this is the part where, in my pillars, this is actually the fourth pillar of accountability. What did I do or didn't do that led to this?
Okay, can you walk, because you said that you had these pillars. Let's go back now a little bit. So tell us about like the process you take your clients on, because most of them come to you for this, right? They're having an issue with like the parenting and they can't seem to like have a connection with their children. So walk us through those pillars that you walk your client through.
Yeah, absolutely. On a very surface level, the first one was awareness, being aware when in those moments you're about to react. Just pause and take a moment. And then the second focus is accept what is so. So we kind of already talked about those. So just accept what is so. And sometimes that means, you're going to mess up. Sometimes you are going to yell. That's the reality. Like, we're human. Things do bother us, and we're on this journey. We're on this evolving journey. And having said that, we need to give ourselves a little bit of compassion, which we talked about a bit, and forgiveness.
Oh, absolutely. Because acceptance sometimes is so hard. It's like we say to ourselves, oh, I could have done it this way or that way. But and like you said, I yelled. Why did I yell? And now this has gotten worse. But just to let it go. I think that acceptance is a lot of that, just letting the baggage go. And this is how it is, like you said.
Right. Yeah. So it's absolutely just understanding you are doing your best. You are whole and complete. We are all born whole and complete. It's just life comes along the way, and then things happen, and we create stories, and we create dramas, and we create all this stuff, all this baggage. So it's a matter of just accepting what's so, and then understanding that we really are whole and complete. And on this journey, as we get back to ourselves, as we get back to reparenting ourselves as well, is understanding that there is a level of compassion we need and a level of forgiveness, so that we let go of the shame, we let go of the guilt, we let go of all those things. And just, it doesn't mean ignore them. It means this is a moment where you can learn from what happened that didn't work. And that leads me to the third focus, which is acknowledgement. So acknowledge where you had wins, where things went really well. The communication was there, the connection was there with your child. You were able to honor him or her and yourself. So you set healthy boundaries. This worked out really well. Honor those wins. And when things don't go as you had hoped or were, planning for, learn from them. So you're going to lose your, as we said, you're going to lose your,
You're gonna lose your
shit.
shit.
Okay, I can say that. I wasn't sure if I could say that. So you're gonna lose your shit and learn from it. So that means you need to take some responsibility in your actions as well. So for example, okay, and I hope I can continue to use your example. In that moment with your son, you got caught up in work.
Yep.
So what was the thing that you could have done that could have made a difference? And this is really hard for a lot of, it was definitely hard for me too, because there's times where I was like, why can't they just do what they were asked to do? I'm trying to help them
Yeah.
learn this lesson.
I could have set a reminder, like a timer on where I remind them, because I know that with Luciano, if he has and I learned this when he was really little. Like if he needed to take a shower, I couldn't just go, okay, it's time to take a shower, let's go. Like it would not work. With Lucci, I have to prepare him. I have to be like, Luciano, you have 10 minutes left. In 10 minutes, you have to take a shower. Oh my gosh, just that would make such a difference. So if I would have set a timer and, 10 minutes prior to his time ending, and then told him, gentle reminder, Lucci, by the way, remember that you have to turn off your equipment in 10 minutes. I know that would have changed everything.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes we expect so much of them as well.
Yeah.
And going back to what you said previously, their executive function, which I learned recently as well, because interestingly enough, I didn't know what executive functioning was until last year. Last year or the year before, but in reality, I had talked to some therapists, and I realized, well, first of all, I was reading books, and I realized that all the books I was learning on my self-improvement journey had to do with executive functions for myself, which was interesting. And it was also what was lacking in Luciano were those executive functions. And it's interesting because, like I said, it's a mirror. Like we were saying, I was a mirror of him. I was mirroring him. He was mirroring me. And I forget where I was going now with my story.
So yes, you had to act as the executive, as the frontal lobe. And what's interesting, what you just said about as you were going through your personal development, as you go through personal development, a lot of it had to do with your frontal lobe. And this again relates back to reparenting ourselves. How was your executive functioning fostered when you were a child?
Yes, well, I don't think that this is now obviously awareness where I am right now, but I've had conversations, really interesting, deep conversations with my parents where we sort of discuss this. And it's like they say, yeah, I guess that we always kind of knew that Valentina had like a problem in that area, but they didn't have the vocabulary for it back in the day.
But wait a minute,
Or,
why is it a problem though?
a problem, or it's something that could have been fostered more. Like now I'm realizing, for example, I have to, when I focus, I hyper focus, right? And I've realized this. And so I lose track of time sometimes because I'm so here with you right now. And that's a gift as well, because I'm present with you, I'm enjoying the conversation, but then I lose track of time. So because Valentina's like that, now I know I have to set certain timers for myself. I also know I can't have notifications going on in my phone. Otherwise, I can get distracted super, super easily. And my son Luciano is exactly the same way.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You just described your son, right? He
Yes,
needed a
yes.
timer. You need a timer. So here's the balance though. Okay. This is something that we need to be aware of. And it's a journey that I'm still evolving in as well. This balance between, yes, you need to be the frontal lobe for your kid, but you also want to give the opportunities for your child to foster their frontal lobe and grow the executive thinking and the executive functioning and making good choices. Like you still want to have to provide opportunities for that. And sometimes it will work and sometimes it won't, because the reality is it's better for you guys to practice, quote unquote, those things now, as opposed to when he's a teen.
Yes.
And you have less connection, less I don't want to say control, but it kind of
In a
is
certain way,
in a
yes.
certain way, right? Like right now he can't travel on his own, but when he's a teen, he's going to be able to travel on his own. Like so might as well practice that now. So there's this balance between, yes, being the executive, be the frontal lobe for your child, and give them some room and trust that they can live into their higher self, just like you can trust yourself to live into your higher self. I literally say to my gladiator, I'll say to her, okay, Ellie, it's after this show, back to technology, the nemesis of parents.
Exactly. It's like our worst enemy and our best friend sometimes.
And our best friend, exactly. So, so after this show, please shut off the TV. Can mommy count on you? And then it's not only that, but I say, I know I can trust you. I believe that you can do it. I know you can. And I thank you for being responsible.
And they need that sometimes to realize that we believe in them. I know that you're completely capable. And then they step up. It's interesting. I had a very interesting situation happen with me and Lucci this year, because I realized, and this is things that we learn as we parent, that I was being, and I always criticize this. It's interesting. We always end up doing sometimes what we criticize, but it's self-awareness. Like, you have to step into that self-awareness. So he was having a problem with his English grades, and I was sort of, because of that, I became sort of like
overbearing.
Yes. And like the helicopter, thank you.
Yeah.
The helicopter mom asking like, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do that? And I was like always on top of him, like, oh, overbearing. Yes. Mm-hmm. And then we had a very interesting talk, or they had a talk at the new school that we're going to, that he's going to. It's a private school. And they called in all the parents and they said, literally the talk was this. They were like, if your kid is going to fail, they might as well fail in middle school, not in high school. Because right now it doesn't really count for their college. And it was like, let them fail. Wow. And they were like, you don't realize that it could be one of the best things that you're doing for your child when you let them fail on their own. And it didn't kick in until several months. And the beginning of the year passed by. I kind of saved him several times from like passing his English class, literally. And I knew it wasn't because he wasn't capable of passing the class, but it was because, I don't know, I was just scared and I didn't want him to fail.
Yeah. So
yes, I was, go ahead. You could say it.
No. Yeah. You nailed it on the head. You were parenting from fear.
I was parenting from fear because I'm like, oh my God. And then, like if he loses a grade, and like I never lost a grade, and then my parents are going to be on top of me and everybody's going to think I'm a failure because I can't, it's like all this, like, what are other people going to think,
Yeah.
Yes.
The stories in your head.
The stories. Because we, for some reason, it's like, why do we, and I try to examine this, is like, why do we think that our like self-worth or our like our kid is our trophy? Our kid is not our trophy. Like, and I think it's so important. So it was I had this aha moment. I don't know if it was an aha, but it was just like, okay, Valentina, you heard the specialist saying it. They said it's better to let him fail. And it was in February where he came home and he said, I have a quiz tomorrow. And I go, and because I saw him that he was nervous, he was stressed. I go, what's wrong? He goes, I have a test tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, well then study for your test. He's like, well, it's on these chapters on a book. I go, okay, well, how many chapters? 8. And how many did you read? 0. I go, okay, you're going to know what it is to fail. I said, I'm not safe. Yeah.
So this is a natural consequence. This is a beautiful example of a natural consequence.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
Now in that, like it's again important to support your kid, but not necessarily maybe in the way that you were before, but in a different way. Like, I'm here for you if you need anything. Maybe next time I can help you pre-plan if you'd like. Or still, let them know that you have their back. It doesn't mean you're going to do the work for them.
Yeah.
But they have to know that when they are in shit, that they can come back to you. And again, not for you to save them, but that they can, it's a difference. You're not saving them, but that they are safe with you.
Yes. Yes. Well, I don't know if I was that nice that day. I said to him, okay. I'm like, I'm taking you to school tomorrow. I'm like, don't think I'm letting you stay home to study for something you should have studied before, because I had done that beforehand. And another occasion, I saved him. So I said, you're going to school. I go, And if you haven't read anything, it's a guaranteed F. I go, okay. I already did 6th grade. I told him. I said, it's your turn. And then I took him to school because he didn't believe me because I had
Mm.
saved him so many times. And I drove to school
Yeah.
that day, like chilling. And then
Yeah.
I saw his eyes were like this.
Yeah.
He was lucky because the teacher delayed the test. Natalie,
Mm.
you know what he did? He read 6 chapters in school he found the time during school, during his study guide and during his recess. He came back and I thought, well, he might still not get a good grade. He read the chapters really quick or whatever. I let him take autonomy. He got an A the next day.
Beautiful.
And
So
then afterwards, now he's taken the time to initiate on his own.
yeah, beautiful. And again, I just want to stress it still is important for us, even when our kids do quote unquote fail,
Yeah.
that we still are there as their support, and we still are there
It's
with
important.
love.
Yeah, it's true.
You know, and you can even empathize with them. And this is part of the, again, I've spoken about Jennifer Clary before, that this is part of her work, is this connected parenting and being marrying your child. So like, oh man, that really sucks. You have to read all these chapters now before tomorrow. Oh my God. And not in a sarcastic way, but like that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure you put yourself into.
Yeah, no, I didn't do
How does
that.
that feel? Yeah. I know. I get that. I get
Confession.
it.
No.
I used to be this. I used to do the same thing, and still at times I still am snarky because I'm like, well, it's another way of being in the space of I told you so,
Yeah, you're
which is
right.
not
You're
which is
right.
not
No.
a loving
Mm-mm,
place.
mm-mm. No, it's not.
So,
It's not a loving place. You're right. Like I have to
but
better at that. Yeah.
hey, the awareness is there now, right? So now you go back and you're like, okay, before you're about to do that, take a moment, breathe. How do I, and then you can make a conscious choice. Do I want to respond? Do I want to react the way I've been reacting in the past, what I've done in the past, and continue to create that distance between me and my child? Or do I want to consciously choose how I'm going to respond in a loving way? It doesn't mean you accept what is happening, but you are compassionate with them. If you're gonna, and this go, this, we talked about compassion. Think about how hard we are on ourselves and how little compassion we have for ourselves. That's how little compassion we often have for our kids.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why it's mirrored. Like, the good thing is after he got the good grade, I was like really proud of him. I go, you see, you could do it on your own. You
Yes.
don't need me. And the biggest lesson for me was I need to back off. I need to back off and sometimes let himself figure it out and because I said to him, you see how proud you feel for having done this on your own? I'm like, this is
Yes.
a great feeling. And interestingly enough, he did a complete 180 shift the moment I literally placed the responsibility on his table, on his desk,
Mm.
because I feel like I was taking on all of his things and not allowing him to step up into his game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you gave him that acknowledgement that he can
Yes.
totally do it.
Yeah.
He is completely capable, and that's why I was talking about the higher self. Like, you know what? I trust you. You have until this time to watch the whatever, or you're sitting at the dinner table. It could be sitting at the dinner table, and I can count on you to eat your vegetables. I, I'm, I love you so much, and I want you to be healthy. That's why I'm encouraging you to eat your veggies. It's important to eat your veggies, and I'm counting on you to do that. I know you can do it. I know you're gonna make a good choice. Whatever the
Yeah.
situation may be, it's like there's a lot of front loading to a lot of conversation, and a lot of parents may think this is a lot of work, and it is in many ways, but I can tell you it's better to have the work in the front end than to have it in the back end when you're repairing. And it's okay to repair too, because we're going to mess up. I still repair, I still mess up. It's okay, but you want to shift it so that you're doing more front loading, more trusting, more acknowledging and encouraging and enrolling and believing in them,
It's
as
funny.
opposed to
Yeah.
doing the opposite. Sorry,
Yeah,
go
it's
ahead.
funny because we say that we need, like I always say, I need more positive like reinforcement. Like I tell my husband, And then I realized, wait a minute, what positive reinforcement? It always has to go back to the question of yourself. Like, what positive reinforcement am I giving my husband or my children? Because if
Or
I'm needing
yourself.
it, maybe it's something that I'm also not giving away.
Exactly. Yeah, that you nailed it really well, Valentina. Like there's this, whatever you notice and want and need from other people, it's like, how much are you giving in that? Because whatever you give, it will come back to
Back.
you.
Yes,
But it's
absolutely.
like, if you expect, and there's times where I still do this. I'm like, well, I wish my husband would do this, or what, blah blah. Well, as soon as you say I wish, you're first of all not being grateful. Second of all, what is it that I can do in that? And this goes back to before when we were talking about what responsibility do you have? What power do you have in the situation that you can make a difference?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to go back to the pillars, because I think we had, okay, so first is self-awareness, second is
Yes,
self-acceptance. The
yes.
third one, what's the third one?
Acknowledgement. So acknowledging what
Acknowledgement.
wins and what the learnings are. Okay.
Okay,
And
so it's
and
basically like the learning. And the fourth pillar is accountability.
accountability. So in this, it's really about having support. And this can look differently for different people. For me, the biggest difference has been for me to believe in myself. Like, I can make this happen. I really can. There's times where I doubt myself, but I really do, in my bones, in my heart, I know that I'm completely capable of this. And there's times when I need support. So having set yourself up so that you have some kind of support, either whether it's a group of friends or some kind of mastermind, or whatever it is that listens to you in your higher self. So they honor you and listen to you in your higher self. So I just want to distinguish, this doesn't mean someone who's just going to be like, oh, you can do it, you're so awesome. This is not a cheerleading squad. This is someone who can hear you and listen to you. You're having a shitty day. You know what? Man, tell me about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about what can make a difference for you.
Well, it's like they say, it takes a village. I really do believe that. And when we
100%.
surround ourselves with people that we can trust, in a community of people that we can learn from,
Yeah.
it's it's very helpful. And I love the
Yes.
word accountability. I have to say that, going back to what you said, accountability. I love that word. You know why? Because to me, accountability is an empowered word. When you take accountability, you're basically you're owning what you have power over, which is a lot more than what we don't have power over. So we might not have power over our circumstances, but we have power over our actions, our emotions, our thoughts, and that's powerful. We can shift everything with our thoughts.
Yes. And I will say, like, one of the things that with the gladiator kid, that came really clear to me is that sometimes I don't have, for me to think that I have control over my child was really, put me in a disempowering position.
Yeah.
And the reality is, she is her own person.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I still need to be her frontal lobe and guide her and help her and love her. And I can't control her either. She is her own person. So, when, like you said, if you can own the 100% of whatever you can own, 100% of who you are, then you can start to make powerful shifts, and then you actually create the space for others to do the same.
Yes. And it
Mm.
also shows them an example, a good example, because then they're like, wow, mommy takes accountability for her actions, and even says
Yeah.
sorry when she does something wrong, because I feel like we are the ones who show them it's okay to say I'm sorry when you do something wrong. How can we expect them to apologize
Yeah.
when they do things that are wrong if we're not able to
We don't.
apologize when we do
Yeah.
something wrong?
100%. Again, it goes back to, we have this expectation that kids should be doing this, 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 and this. Well, are we doing it? Are you showing it? Are you living it? Are you embodying it? It's not just a practice what I preach. It's, I've got to really be that person.
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
show you it's possible. So yeah, I want to, if it's okay, I want to end, if you
Yes.
want to end, but I want to share my motto, which is accepting all that you are while you're evolving to all that you can be. This is the key to you living your fullest potential.
Can you repeat that for us?
Yes, accepting all that you are while evolving to all that you can be is the key to living your fullest potential.
Oh, I love that. Yes. Amen. Yes, I
Amen.
love it. I love it. Natalie, tell my audience where my mamacitas can follow you, where they can find
Mhm.
you. We're going to be putting a blog post on this episode, mamasconganas.com/44. So you can make comments on this episode. I want all my mothers to make comments because I know we all struggle with the same things. And
Yeah.
what did you think of this episode? How do you go about in terms of dealing with, I guess, conscious parenting? It's what it's called, right? Conscious
Mm.
parenting in this era. And you can find Natalie there. You'll be able to get all the links for her, but tell them where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so they can find me at Evolving with Natalie. So I have a website and an IG and Facebook.
And Natalie, by the way, is without an H. So it's
Yes,
Natalie.
Talie. Yeah,
So Evolving with Natalie.
yeah, .com.
Thank you so much, Natalie, for being
Thank
with us
you.
today. I think we all learned some things. And I know that, I always say that when we share our own stories, when you share your stories, I share my stories, um, other people can see themselves reflected in our, because we all go through very similar cases, and that's why we highlight and we share these stories with you all. And we hope that that you love this episode as much as I did, because I loved interviewing you. It was so fun. And also check out our book. I'm going to be putting our book is called Ignite Love. So Natalie has her chapter, I have my chapter, and it's a beautiful book about how to manifest love in your life, all different types of love. So yes, love, 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 love. So check that out as well. mamasconganas.com/44. See you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Bye, Natalie. Epa, es Valentina Izarra. Gracias por escuchar este episodio de nuestro podcast. Si te gustó nuestro contenido y si de alguna manera te ha inspirado, te agradeceríamos infinitamente una demostración de tu amorcito escribiendo una evaluación en iTunes o por el medio que me escuchaste. Cada comentario positivo nos ayuda a alcanzar más mamacitas para que ellas también puedan vivir su vida con muchas ganas. Gracias a oyentes como tú, podemos continuar a hacer contenido para muchas latinas. 1,000,000 de gracias por suscribirte, escuchar y compartir nuestro podcast. Si tienes preguntas, comentarios y más, puedes visitar nuestra página web mamasconganas.com o seguirnos en las redes sociales @mamasconganas. Hasta la próxima, es Valentina recordándoles, don't be a mama con drama. Let's be mamas con ganas. Besitos.